Councilor Kinney?
Thank you. I spoke to the Utilities Superintendent, Jack Schuster, last week about this issue, if the council would recognize him to come forward. Is he here? Yes. And in our conversation, because we need to consider things that would impact public health or safety, he's going to give us some background in terms of how this may affect public health or safety. And then also in that, would you include where our pipe is now and what it would take to extend it out further? So I'll let you make it.
Well, give you a little background on our treatment process. We are a microfiltration plant. Bacteria is 1 micron. Our filtration is 0.2. So we can filter out bacteria. If that is not to a point. Viruses, we cannot. Hormones, other chemicals, we cannot. And I'm not predicting the future, I'm just giving you facts. I don't know what will happen with this cable or not. Along those lines, other things that affect water will be nutrient loading, if that were to occur. Nutrient loading causes algae blooms. Those are problems with filtration units. And they also, algae blooms die, and you get a cycle going. It's not good. Presently, our intake goes out, I believe it's 1,950 feet. A study was done, and I didn't get a chance to dig up that study on how much further they're going to extend it. DNR has come to us and recommended another intake, extending it out further, and I think the cost of that, well, I was told, was about $4 million. They like redundancy. They wouldn't want us to keep the one we have now and extend another. I can come back with the exact numbers on that, but I do not know where that's at.
Ray Hyde said $4 million last week.
Is that what he said? Okay. Besides that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on any concerns if a problem would arise.
Could you answer Mr. Kinney's question about where the intake is now, the location of it?
I'd just assume not.
Okay, okay, all right.
Well, I spoke to the Public Works Director, Ray Hyde, last week, and he indicated that the intake pipe right now is not as far out as it should be. Back in 1960 or 61, there was a storm and there was a ship that dragged anchor and it broke our intake pipe. And so currently that intake pipe draws water that comes from the Fish Creek plume. And so while we would need roughly $4 million to extend it where the DNR would like us to, and we talked about that prior to this issue coming up, you know, it is where it is right now for the moment. And one of the issues that we have to consider is with the filters, you know, we draw from that Fish Creek plume, and according to this website that we included here, there's an equivalent of 1,000 dump truck loads a year of sediment coming through Fish Creek. And so there's some cost with our filters. We replaced those a couple of years ago to nearly $500,000. So one of the questions I have for you is, if there were changes in the water that we filter, and we don't know what the future holds with this, but if there are changes, is it possible that we may have to change our filtration system to different kinds of filters or a different plant? And any idea what those costs might be, and what are acceptable levels of some things that may concern you that would still be deemed safe for the public?
Well, that's a complicated issue, hearing problem I couldn't give off the top of my head. We don't have any pre-sedimentation or anything like that set up at the plant. A microfiltration plant is usually allowed or set up in a place where the water is pretty pristine to begin with, so you're not dealing with a lot of sedimentation. That is normal practice. And we do have very pristine water, even with the sediment blooms we do have. We run turbidities, which is a measurement for how murky water is. You know, we consider bad as, you know, 60. If you're on the Mississippi River, they like it around 1,500. That's where their process works well. So the processes are designed for specific streams and water supplies. Cost It would be a lot. How's that? More than you got. Did I answer your question?
Well,
Yeah.
is it fair to say that at this point, we don't know what impacts there may or may not be?
No, we don't.
Nor do we fully understand the cost beyond the 4 million for extending our pipe. We don't understand those costs at this point. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, we don't. It is not an extension, it is a new pipe.
The new one would be.
The old one would remain.
Okay, thank you.
That would be redundancy.